I'm a firm believer from my own experience that when we are exposed to music and we're gifted access to musical education, musical appreciation, music appreciation, we are developed in a more amplified way, and we're able to understand nuances of feelings better, energetics better. And of course, sensitivities and sensibilities are also, it's another story, and it comes with responsibilities.
This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney Ann Jenkins.
Hello and welcome to the 107th episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This episode, I have with me Dr. Marina Smirnova. Marina was born on Sakhalin Island in the far east of Russia, and well over 20 years ago, she made the U.S.A. her home. Her journey has been enriched by earning a bachelor degree in music education, a master's of arts degree in counseling, and a PhD degree in psychology with transpersonal psychology concentration. She started her teaching path at the age of 18 as a K-12 music teacher. She began her contribution to Saybrook University in 2013, and in 2016 she became the Assistant Program Director for the Department of Humanistic and Clinical Psychology. And she currently serves as a full professor of psychology and consciousness, spirituality, and integrative health specialization director at Saybrook. She is the recipient of 2 Saybrook University awards, the Presidential Award for Excellence and Exemplary Humanistic Educator Award. Her interests are deeply humanistic and transpersonal in nature, and outside of the halls of academia, she supports adults' inner development by helping them to integrate fully their deeply evocative, exceptional human experiences. Such experiences often arise within and out of dreams, visions, visitations, spiritual practices, breathwork, visionary journeys, and reality-shattering UFO, ET, alien, non-human intelligence encounters. She supports experiencers transpersonally in their quest for spiritual vitality, fulfillment, vibrant longevity, soulful sovereignty, wholeness, and ascension. She also has a deep connection to the work of Stanislav Grof and holotropic breathwork. I've had the pleasure of having Marina as a professor at Saybrook, and I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. We have split this conversation up into 2 separate parts just because it got quite lengthy, and we wanted to give you a chance to integrate some of this information before giving you the whole piece to maybe digest a little easier for yourself. Or if you're feeling inspired, you can listen to part 1 and part 2 back to back. So here is my conversation with Dr. Marina Smirnova. Enjoy. Because sometimes things get fabulously said and we don't have them recorded, and that's unfortunate. So
Oh, okay. Yes, because we want to be behind the scenes variation of this as well. Do you know?
I like to sometimes just start it in the middle of a conversation like a play would start, because I
I
think
like that.
it's kind of fun.
I like that. How we're tuning into the radio or turning on the TV and the show is on, so we have to catch up to what's going on.
Exactly.
You may also offer your viewers and listeners kind of an opportunity to think, what happened? What did I miss? I like this. So cheers to a great conversation.
Yes. I lit a candle also.
Oh, mine is right here too. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to diving in.
Yes. We surrender.
How would you like me to refer to you?
Marina would be a good idea.
So the theme of my podcast is about following your inner voice or your authenticity or the inner drive or the daimon or the duende or whatever you would like to call it, the creative essence of yourself, depending on who you are. But because of who you are and your nature and the work that you do in the world, there must have been a lot that
you've had to explore on your own in order to be able to be a guide to help people connect with this thing within themselves. And so, one of the first things that I like to ask is, when is the first time that you can remember recognizing that you had this inner voice of your own and you were able to use it as a compass to be able to follow it?
Yes, thank you. That's a big question because I believe that there are many first times, especially when it comes to childhood experiences. Because at times I'm thinking, oh, that was my first time. And then time goes by and I said, no, 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 wait a minute. Maybe it was my second first time or third first time or fourth first time. Because, you know, a lot of our childhood experiences, a lot of them are submerged into that ocean of being, and they emerge as they do. So I would say I'd like to speak with you about several firsts.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe even half firsts. Let's just get into that space.
It's in
Into
the liminal space, right?
right, exactly. The liminal betwixt and between. Yes, because to me, in my experience, my childhood territory is kind of like that, you know. I grew up on Sakhalin Island, very far east of Russia. And this is where I was born, in the very south of it, north of Japan. Incredible landscape, unbelievable diversity, tastes and scents that still follow me all my life from the island, be it of fish being prepared, being salted, be it the market that you walk in and, you know, certain like dumplings. I still remember the dumplings, certain, I just don't know what kind that is. I keep in the US, keep exploring, hoping to find just that type of dumpling. I'm yet to find this. So this is the backdrop of my birth. Yes, and the climate, of course, there is quite severe, right? So winters are very, very snowy, very cold, super snowy, where people could sit on the first story roofs and the snow is just up there, right? I have photos of this, right? This is fun. And summers are very short and very rainy, fairly mild, but very rainy. So they're so short that fruit does not come to its fullness, if you will, right? Apples, etc. They just cannot mature fully. And that is also part of the backdrop of half firsts, if you will, right? In that liminal space. It's like almost there, but not quite, and it's okay. So for me, I recall several poignant experiences where I was reminded that I do have that very essence within me that is priceless, that is not for sale, and it is not to be conquered, and it is not to be seduced into something that's not mine. And for me, it came very early. I had to be around 3 or 4. It probably was happening earlier. It's just that I may not recall it. And this is where it may be fourth first or fifth first, what have you, right? It's in that area. So, and main character on that stage is my maternal grandfather, Leonid Nikolaevich Kuznetsov, bless his soul. He was a very interesting, highly educated man with gentle heart, but also with life that was filled with a lot of turmoil and post-war rebuilding of the country, post-Second World War II. Yeah, so a lot of very severe experiences, which really influenced his psyche. And so here's the game that I recall as my what have you first, right? Whatever the number. He would say in Russian, that is my mother tongue. Я тебя куплю means I will purchase you, I will acquire you, I will obtain you, right? And the list goes on, many synonyms. And my answer, as he taught me, a little girl, like a tiny little one, я не продаюсь. My answer is, I'm not for sale. I'm not to be acquired. I'm not to be conquered. I'm not to be someone else's, in essence, right? And it was so fun how he rehearsed that with me as a call and response. So many times that for many years, maybe even decades, it went deep inside me. I could not consciously really recall it for a long time, until opportunities, as life has them, presented themselves that all of a sudden I'm awake to something that always has been. I'm awake to my own core, which I have betrayed many times, which I have bypassed many times, which I have silenced many times, self-silence as well, yes, to fit in, to survive, to somehow continue to build a life that is better than it was yesterday. Yes. But that has never left me. That simple teaching in a playful way, in a language of a game, which is the language of children, really. We have to play, but also as adults, we have to play. Yes, never goes away. But in that language of play that is full-hearted and that is based on core values, which an adult, an elder, if you will, of the family imparted upon me as a core of my legacy, it turns out. I remember my grandfather by that, right? Yes, you wanted to share, please do.
Oh, I think that is a very cinematic, and I can see that scene playing out. And imagine you must have had flashbacks of that scene in your own mind as you went forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I like when you are jumping in and we'll weave together. Let's do it, okay? Let's do
Yeah,
it.
that's fantastic. So, who else was around you in your environment, like during that time?
Growing up, yes. So I lived with my parents, only child, but I was also the very first grandchild for all of my grandparents. My maternal grandparents were very close by in the same town and just walking within minutes. We lived in different apartments, different buildings, different streets, but very close by. And also from time to time, I would visit my father's family on Peninsula, Kamchatka. That was very memorable as well. And thank you so much for expanding my exploration here of the firsts. Yes. I believe those experiences, visiting my paternal grandparents on Kamchatka, Yelizava, actually, the place is called, very tiny place, also formed me in terms of my authentic being, and also strengthened me in some sense that was essential at the time, but also continues to be essential. And with this, for instance, that was my first trip that I consciously remember by plane. I know I flew many times as a baby. I just can't remember those firsts. Okay. My parents told me how that all, was. But when we visited several times, my grandma and grandpa on Kamchatka, I recall that flight. It was exhilarating and it was terrifying. We were sitting in a small plane very close to the door, to the exit door, and in my child imagination, child mind, literally not childlike, literally child, it was little, 3, 4.
Right.
I just could see how flimsy it was. There was some kind of a little, elastic band over this. As a child, I didn't know that it was locked many times, but it felt like we can fly into the sky in any moment. And of course, it was this, the world is upon us. In that moment too, how are we thrown into the world? So as a child, all of a sudden, I felt experientially, without having words for it, perhaps that awe of existence, that elevation of the spirit, of being lifted up, and also that stark realization, as in, quite fairy tale like terror of, what if we fall out of the plane?
Right.
So, and you know what that served? I guess it served within me, a part of me that I later understood as waste no time, waste no energy. The door can open unexpectedly anytime. And the cosmic well-being swallows us once again. Yes.
Yeah, this is also fun to think about as a child. We look up at the sky and the clouds and imagine like what is beyond. And you were up there. So did you make that connection of what it was like to actually see something from a different perspective and how small you were in the big world?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Not right away. Not right away. What really stayed with me experientially, the shock of existence of us being here, and that we can be uninvited from that plane any moment with a swing of a door. And of course the metaphor, right?
Right.
The door kind of opens and it closes, and it opens and it closes, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Yes, so in that, thank you for asking. But layers of that came later in my life, where I began to explore the transpersonal domain without having the words for it.
Mhm.
And understanding, that's what it is. And so that's another first I'll share with you that also anchored with me a sense of connectedness with all that is. And it gave me a sense of the ground will hold. It's okay. And this is the stark juxtaposition, right? The sky can swallow me, but the ground will hold me. Yes, it's kind of this paradox. Yes. And that was maybe a little later. I had to be 4 for sure. I'm thinking 4, maybe 4.5, maybe 5. I was at a government childcare, which I very much enjoyed. They did a good job. And it was a covetous place because there were only so many seats for children, so we had to wait in line, etc. So, but it was a cool place, in my opinion, in my experience. And we were sitting outside Sakhalin Island. It was summer, and it was one of those perfect days for Sakhalin Island. Everything seemed to be just intact, and the air is warm enough, and the sun is shining. We're sitting outside, and it's fairly quiet. Somehow I remember just my friend and I, just the two of us. And we sit at this table on a bench, and all of a sudden, I'm there and I'm not. And with this, I mean that I am present to her. I am present enough to where I am, but I'm also present everywhere. And how would I explain this to anyone? So that sharing about this experience came only later in my life, because language had to be developed enough. I had to explore enough the musical domain, the psychological domain, transpersonal domain.
Was that a visual experience, a feeling experience, a knowing experience of being everywhere and right where you were?
Yes, I felt it in my body. So it was a felt sense. And at the same time, it's almost as if energetically I was so much larger, but it wasn't, it was me, but also non-me. And it's that opening of the door that I welcomed. That's not a door. We're speaking about doors apparently today. Apparently. And that was a welcoming door. And it was much larger than the door in the airplane that I recall. And my friend kept asking, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, kind of like, yeah, I'm cool, but I did not want to leave that sense of expansive identity, embodied identity, and that opening into the possibilities, into the cosmic beingness, if you will, into the cosmic breath. But it was so gentle and it was so shielding. It gave me only what I could really enjoy without any terror, without any shivers of the wrong kind. So it was very generous. I so much value that experience. So for me, that helped me to connect that growing authentic thread within me that I am a person with I am all that is. And therefore, when I feel that I'm all that is, I'm much more authentic of who I am than otherwise. So it's with growing with that sense of identity came a growth in a sense of what we call now authenticity. Yeah. So your turn.
I'm interested because you were with a friend.
Yes.
And so what was it that prompted her to ask you if you were okay? Like,
Yes, thank you for asking. I think she understood that something is happening. It is not out of the question that she has experienced something herself. And I was a mirror to her experiences. And maybe she was asking, like, am I really okay? By asking, are you okay? Because out of all possibilities, it was my girlfriend, friend as a girl, right? And so here we are, two girls, two friends, children, and she's checking up on me if I'm okay, right? So that remains a mystery. I can't speak for her. And truth be told, I can't even remember her name. It was that long ago.
yeah, but there was something going on that she felt that there was a shift in what was happening that was not part of like habitual
Yes,
of
yeah.
me. Yeah.
She definitely felt that what we call now an expanded state of consciousness that is upon us, and that grand opening of a kind. So in that sense, it was really one of the firsts, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? Uh-huh.
Okay, so having that experience, and you were how old? You said around 4.
4.5, maybe 5. Uh-huh.
Did you seek that experience again? Was that something that you felt like you were chasing after having that experience?
For a long time, I did not even know what to do with it. And it was just one of many experiences I had. I did not really differentiate it for a long time that was a formative experience, transpersonally speaking. That came later. However, deep inside, something was ignited in me beyond words that I was seeking in my own way a sense of belonging of that type that's beyond simple human individual to individual connection. I believe I was always inspired in my own ways, even deeply unconsciously, by that vastness, right, of being. You could call it, the Holy Spirit. You could call it the breath of the universe. You could call it cosmic. You could call it wisdom. It goes by so many, whatever the name, the big unknown, the big mystery. It always drew me closer and closer and closer and closer. So that in and out of itself, I believe, continues even now to remind me that we are going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We're going to be okay, even if it doesn't look like it.
Oh yeah. So going home after that experience, what did you go back to? What was your environment like as a child, as far as, were your parents religious? Was there a spiritual application to your life during that time?
Yes. So at that time, the former Soviet Union was formally utmost non-religious. So much so that religion was really, in essence, prohibited because it was just the old way and it was no longer welcome. However, the deeper layers of spirituality and religious understanding and reverence for the old traditions went deep undercurrent, underground, so to speak. People who were curious of those traditions, they continued, but it was not on the surface. It was never taught at school. I have not ever visited a church till I was 14. And even then, my mother risked a lot to get me there in the back door. So it was very non-religious, very secular environment. However, it was also an environment that emphasized a great deal of values that would be not simply personal, but really transpersonal, meaning they are values not only that do good by one person or one family, they're for the benefit and on behalf of all. It's a different question how ideologically it was packaged and how it was perpetuated. But the value-based upbringing and the value-based education I have faith in, aside from any political rep paper, yes. So that was something that was present. And to me, it was also spiritual. And to me, those values go right to the core of authenticity.
Yeah.
Some of the values I kept for a very, very long time. Some of them I kept struggling with for a very long time and wrestling with. Others never left me, and I don't think they will. But as part of authentic walk for me in this life is to continue to revisit and revise my own relationship with values that reside within me, that live and breathe, and also the values that come in from the outside inside.
Yes. Your environment growing up sounds very idyllic and magical in many ways in my mind, envisioning the island that you describe and the values that are implemented into that lifestyle. Did you feel comfortable within your authenticity growing up, and going from child to becoming woman? Like, what was that like for you?
What was it like? Yes. The answer would be yes and no. Did I? Yes, I did, but also did not. So I believe that that's part of the journeys, heroic journeys that we all take, consciously or unconsciously, willfully or forcefully sometimes. Yes, circumstantially, karmically, whatever the case, Yeah. So interestingly, my parents felt very self-conscious on my behalf. Get this, right? Self-conscious on my behalf. That genetically, they gave me a gene pool that I'm very tall. Both of my parents are very tall. And then imagine, they're like so conscious about me being super tall, right? Which is so odd. Now speaking, right? I understand that back then, they're just thinking they wanted me to fit in, etc. Because I was like sticking out, really sticking out, totally, like a twig. So they decided to put me in school 1 year earlier without preparation. So they did, but that did create a turmoil that is still echoing, right, as a ripple effect in the one way or another. That's what I get to navigate, right? I felt so behind, especially the first year of school and the half of the second year. And then halfway into my second grade, things began to change. And I'll share with you why, as I understand it now. And that's the importance of important people in our lives, how they affect our authenticity, how they affect our daimon or guardian angel or that calling, by instilling in us that we are good enough and what we have to offer actually makes a difference. So my first grade teacher was was also my second grade teacher, was a very experienced woman. In her experienceness, if there's such a word, right? She was so stern with me to the point of crushing my spirit. Say it, right? And I felt so unacknowledged, and I felt so odd that I just don't belong in that group simply because everyone is reading and I'm not. Everyone is reciting alphabet and all of this front and backward and what have you. I was like, excuse me, could you say it again? Could you say it again? And so on top of that, mind you, it was a specialized school because it was emphasized, it was with emphasis in mathematics. So I got a double whammy. Not only I can't read, I can't even read mathematically the problem that they want me to solve. Advanced level, So I was like, okay, how do we work with this? And I made it to the half of my second grade. And then the miracle happened. And I believe that we all have miracles, right? When we need them. It's that thread of the divine that says, hold on as tightly as you need to, right? But don't let go. And we had a student teacher coming in for half a year. And it was the system set up in such a way that really she ran everything. She ran the classroom, she did everything with very little assistance of the main teacher, right? Who is there. And somehow my main first and grade and half of second grade teacher has forgot to tune in the student teacher that I was no good in her eyes. And the student teacher said, oh, excuse me, what are you doing? Get over here, sit down right here. This is how it's done. Okay, let's do it. Now you do it by yourself. Okay, now you do it. Okay, now you're going to go to the, blackboard and you're going to show everybody how that's done. So she put me on the spot. And all of a sudden, my grades just skyrocketed. Everything, it was the 2 quarters that she was with us. So third quarter and the fourth quarter. And by the time of the second grade, I was a new person. And that actually, to answer your question further, that has shown me how in 2 quarters, half of academic year, a destiny of a child is changed forever. As the fates would have it, my parents moved after my second grade to the mainland. That's another story why, right? So my mom really wanted to make sure she's in the mainland, and she wanted to live with our relatives in Ukraine, in Melitopol, so badly, but it didn't work out because back then, individuals did not own apartments, government did, but individuals could exchange the apartments, and that created all sorts of very complex, sometimes very expensive scenarios. And so no matter how she tried it, it didn't work. So the closest she could get to Ukraine was Belarus, because Belarus is north of Ukraine, they share border. And so she reconciled that, okay, if we can't, exchange the apartment for Ukraine, at least we can exchange it for Belarus, and it's close enough and we can make trips, and that's what happened. And coming into third grade in Belarus and having a brand new teacher was also a grace of the divine, because I imagine she would, suspect that I had number of gaps But she also knew that I'm firm enough to overcome and do whatever I'm supposed to do. And I think I got 1F in a whole half a year for one assignment, which I should have known better, it was on me. I should have really prepared better for that one. And from there on, it was, I owned my work.
Yeah. So, what was it like for you to move your home? Like going from the place that you knew that was safe and secure for you to in which you felt open enough to be able to access this like part of yourself. Because I moved in my childhood and it had a deep effect on me. So I'm curious how you handled that.
Thank you for asking, because in childhood, everything is amplified, isn't it? Yeah. It was not easy. And it was also blessed in some ways. And it was also fortified through challenges. I'll give you examples. So while I was able to reclaim my own sense of self-worth, yes, coming into a new classroom, new republic, right? Because back then it was different republics, former Soviet Union, entirely new culture that spoke two languages, Belarusian and Russian. And they're not, Belarusian is not a dialect of Russian. It is its own language, right? It comes with own traditions, own culture, folklore, so on. Very rich, as well as Russian is too. And so coming into this new group because of the move was challenging culturally, because we spoke, coming into Belarus, spoke Russian with if you will, with the influx or influence of the place where we were, which was very close to kind of a common non-dialectical way, or very, very little dialect. And so when we landed, our Russian was not their Russian.
Right.
We didn't speak Belarusian at all. And even then, we already felt that, oh, we have to catch up, and quickly. That included my parents. My mom taught college, so that became a really big issue. It's like, oh, she needs to speak Belarusian, like on a Dutch, she needs to be able to do it. And that was a struggle for all three of us, my dad, my mom, and I. And so that cultural dissonance, if you will, did two things. Number one, somehow it affirmed my uniqueness. I don't speak like everybody else. I still don't. Imagine this, right? Now it's entirely different layered story. Yes. And even my Belarusian, as I was learning it, it's like so far off. Yes. And all of a sudden, I am more unique in myself and into myself without even needed or wanted to be than I, otherwise would have been. On another side, academically, because I was excelling, it was recognized well by my peers, and they would turn to me quite often, with questions or, with conversations about this, or kind of, okay, let's figure out what it is and how that is and what it is. And even though I don't speak Belarusian, even though my Russian is really far off, right, in their way, but academically, I think we hit it off. And that was a saving grace for me to ride that beam, because once we moved to Belarus, my parents were like so concerned that, like, okay, where's your homework? Let's make sure you do. I said, hey, excuse me, whose homework is this?
Mm-hmm.
Homework. You want to talk about my homework? Go to my teacher, right? Something in me clicked. And that was a big, big third grade first, if I will tell you this, right? Third grade first, where I said, no, that's my work. You want to find out? Go to the teacher. And that became part of my inner voice. Yes. So I will do the very best that I can do. Don't touch this. Don't bother me. I don't need your help with this. Yes, I've had enough of your help when you put me a year ahead, unprepared. Thanks for that.
those are amazing boundaries for a third grader.
I know, but that's what happened, you know, it was just kind of this stark way of reconciling sense of being disempowered and being ostracized, right? In a sense, because it was appearing as if I'm less than, but I knew I'm not. And so, but when a child hears that he or she or they are less than for so long, unless something changes and a teacher, you know, and a student teacher comes in, or parents move, or some kind of drastic change happens, they may be stuck in that muck, if you will, that is not of their own, and it's so much harder because so much harder to retrieve their potential, their calling, their own unique edge, because we all have unique edges, and how do we allow them to shine, to at least even show up, and to be part of the conversation, you know? And so, speaking of the daimon, of the guardian angel, I feel that I've always been protected. And that's a big part of the conversation, that it's not just that, oh, I was able to make it, or I had spiritual help
Yeah.
in a country where spiritual help was not formally available. That's another joke, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Were there certain subjects that you were drawn to as a child?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So because my mom taught college for over 3 decades, 33 years actually, and she taught music. Naturally, I was part of all the rehearsals that could be a part of, you know, crawling between the music stands and
Yeah.
you know, getting in trouble of the best kind, you know, because I remember her students were very kind to me. And this is why maybe I like that environment, because I felt like, okay, I can be myself and I can do my thing, but I can also respect what's going on, right? And just be a part of, participate in that environment. So my mom really wanted me to pursue music as my career. And that was her part of her contribution, big contribution to my life. Even though I resisted, because my dad was actually, no, you gotta be in sports, you're so tall, you know. But then he was like, okay, let's capitalize on this investment, okay? let's make sure she's in basketball, okay? So there was this, you know, exactly. There were just, you know, two of them, one in each ear, you
Right.
know, they're just sharing their story, what my life should be. And I'm glad that my mom convinced me many a time, in many ways, sometimes even in ways that beyond my own wish, to stay with that musical line, right? And that became a leitmotif of my life, because it helped me to develop psychologically. I'm a firm believer from my own experience that when we are exposed to music and we're gifted access to musical education, musical appreciation, music appreciation, we are developed in a more amplified way, and we're able to understand nuances of feelings better, energetics better, and of course sensitivities and sensibilities are also, it's another story, and it comes with responsibilities. So I understand that it came with a lot of enhanced responsibilities, how to take care of sensitivities that are part of that territory. And we're given them even before we come into, you know, the field of music, and then we develop them. It's like, wow, how do we tend to those gifts, and how they're growing within us? So I'd like to ask you to share, please, about your musical development and how that has shaped you.
Oh my goodness, my musical development. I remember finding my voice when I was, I don't know, probably like two or three outside in nature, like prancing around and like singing to the skies and the trees and like really feeling like connected to something. But also at the same time, I was very quiet. And I wasn't quiet because I feel like I was shy, because I had a lot of fire within me, but I was quiet because I felt like it wasn't safe to be myself in the environment that I was in. And so I kind of hid that part of myself for a little while. And then I was in a dance recital and there was a girl there singing, and something clicked in me that I was like, I can do that. I
Yeah.
can do that too. And so after that moment, I didn't stop singing. But once my parents got wind of that, they kind of were trying to shape that and put me into like voice lessons. And so I feel like people were trying to kind of mold me along the way when it was something that was really kind of sacred to myself. But I started piano lessons when I was 5, and music has been a part of my life for a really long time, to the point of performing in a talent show when I was in 6th grade, and people kind of like being shocked because I didn't talk in school very much. I was really shy. And then there came a moment where I was in middle school and I got really depressed, and singing was like the only thing that kind of like helped me get through that. So I would even sing in the gym in school during breaks because people asked me to. And I remember getting an email. It was like AOL when we had those screen names, like a long time ago. And I got an anonymous letter from someone from like Killer like 7356 or something. And it said, I hate it when you sing and I hope you die.
Oh no.
And
Oh,
so I've just been recently thinking about this because that was the only thing that I feel like was keeping me alive during that time,
ah,
you know?
isn't that something? Thank you so much for sharing. Say more about really buckling up that way that really helps you to just stay with life, and lean in more. Even the comment that is so disheartening could help you to go forth.
I think I think the connection with singing and now like knowing more about like energy and like the throat chakra and the connection to everything, um, it helped me feel not alone, a part of something bigger,
Uh-huh,
like a channel of some sort.
uh-huh. Thank you. What a precious experience.
Yeah. So yeah, music can be very healing and as well.
Yes, you touched upon something that resonates with me, many things. One of them is that a music instruction, while well intended, could be very unwelcomed in a budding world of a being. I've experienced this myself in a number of ways through piano instruction as a child. So going through that. Did you hear me? I said that, going through that. I don't know how I made it through that. I wanted to give up so many times. My mom kind of insisted, and it's like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it this way. Okay, you need a break. You take a break. Whatever it takes. So she insisted, and somehow it worked out because when I got to college, and it kind of links me to what followed. I got the best music teachers. But before I got the best, I had to go through teachers who contributed greatly to me not wanting to be in music. I'll put it this way. So I very much hear you when, in your own way, you needed your voice to develop as it will without someone else's influence, at least at that time. Yes. And for me, when I got to college, so that's another part of development in terms of authentic voice and understanding what is my direction, what is not mine. I had to redo a good deal of previous music education in a very intense ways when I got to college. So because I was 14, well, typically my peers were 15, 16, some of them were older, but because I was younger by year everywhere I went, so I was 14 when I started college. It was a type of early college enrollment, but it was college all the way in a way. So it was that is big, but jingle all the way, right?
Yeah.
So I got to a piano instructor, and she said, "Okay, we need to rebuild your hands. We need to break your hands, metaphorically speaking, right, in terms of positioning." And we have to rebuild them because the way that they are positioned now, how your previous teacher or teachers position them, it cannot take you very far. With the program that's before you, you have 4 years before you. I know where you're going. And with that position, you're not going there. So it took 6 months in the first year really to break my hands, metaphorically speaking. By that, I mean break the entire posture that I've developed over the years, which is actually tremendously difficult. It was difficult for me, but she helped me. And I want to acknowledge her name, Lina Mikhailovna Trubnikova. So that is her name. And she was a firm believer in me all along. And she says, no, you can do it. She was incredibly supportive. She was also tough. All of my teachers of that time, they were very tough, but they were, their toughness was coming from the right place, from that center in their soul. They knew that they are here to teach me something important, free of cruelty, but very intentionally and very soulfully shaping me and others. I'm very grateful for this because in a way that was the toughest and the most valuable education I received that allowed me to be where I'm at. Then earning master's degree here in the U.S., earning my PhD degree here in the U.S. But those 4 years from 14 till 18, which ended in a red diploma with honors, really chiseled out the space inside me that I'm much more than I would be comfortable thinking of myself. And so many brooks, if you will, rivers, if you will, streams have been poured into me that now I am obligated to continue.
Yeah, I kind of want to bring something up because,
Please do.
like, thinking of the flow state
Yeah.
in creativity, where like it's so important to master a skill in order to be able to get to those higher connections and dimensions that you were talking about. And that teacher really helped you
She understood it.
saying that.
Yeah, yeah, she really did. And I'm so glad that you see it as well. And even during that time, so the 4 years I'm speaking about, placing it in a historical context from 1988 through 1992. That was the 4 years from 14 till 18 for me. And you're absolutely right. She saw that I need to have a technical positioning of the hands first in place, and she was willing to spend 1 year on this and nothing else.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm saying this because I'm recognizing myself in that while I was taking piano lessons or any of the lessons that I was taking, I was really frustrated because I felt that because I wasn't at the skill level that I wanted to be, that I couldn't express myself as I wanted to creatively. And
Yeah.
that was what I wanted to do it for in the first place. So yeah, that's a connection.
Yes, thank you so much for speaking to that. Yes, because it was grueling. I want to share with you. It was grueling. And in the midst of it, you can't make this up. Okay, here's the archetypal alignment. I thought I actually broke one of my hands. I fell down on the steps of the college in winter, mid-year. And of course I had, all of this sets for, for healing. And then finally, when I came to the doctor once again, and they actually, took x-rays again, they said, oh, it wasn't a full break. It was like a, some kind of a tear, what have you. There was something connected with the bone, but it wasn't a full break. So not only was I going through this breaking of a position, there was this 3D message. Yeah, it will look like it's broken, but it isn't. Don't worry. Don't worry, darling. You just keep going, right? So that was a kind of a 2-week, 3-week ordeal with that wrist. It wasn't part of my, wrist. And so there was this really kind of breaking down time, right? Or break down to break through. And I want really to speak to this. Sometimes, if we think of 4 years, right? And let's think of it as also as a metaphor. If we spend 1/4 of a specific journey in a position of breaking down the old, so the new can arise much stronger and take us much further, wouldn't it be a consideration for us to invest that 1/4, which is a huge part of the journey, into that sacred process of breaking down what no longer works, what no longer serves, what is limiting enough to stop us in our tracks and our skill development that is necessary for us then to actually fly, right? As angels do, as the winged beings do, right?
Were you aware that your positioning was limiting you, or did someone have to, you were aware of it?
I was aware of it, and I'll share with you why. Because my hands would get so tense and so tired. And even, there's breathing, there's pauses, etc. in musical compositions. Those pauses were not enough for me to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And the pieces that I was playing there were not that complicated, but I already felt this arrest in my wrist. And my wrist was not dropping down enough. It was kind of more like this. It had to be dropped down enough as we were holding an apple. It had to be flexible, It had to just, again, hold. I was aware of this, but my teachers, Lena Mikhailовna Trubnikova, so she's the one who said, we're doing it. She didn't ask me. And that's another thing. She didn't ask me. She didn't tell me, oh, it will be difficult. This is, that's what's next. And that's what we're doing, because this way you can go as far as you'd like to go.
Okay. Do you remember having a moment that clicked when that finally made sense? Like all that work finally?
It did. It did. And I tell you, when it really clicked, when I got my red diploma. I'm still so stoked about this, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
18-year-old with red diploma, and anyone from the former Soviet Union know exactly what it is, because there are only 2 types of diploma, blue and red. And when you say you have red diploma, it's the best of the achievements you can have, at whatever level that diploma is given. Yeah, so it was definitely worth it. And for me, I'll share about this too, because quite often we look at individuals in the creative field and we believe that, oh, they're gifted all of the components of being successful, and therefore they are. And I beg to differ. We're not necessarily given all of the components. I was not given all components. I will speak for myself, right? And I witness others who are not given. But what we are doing together in conversation is to, codependent co-arising, right? In conversation, we take a look at someone else who shines in ways that the edges that are raw in us, that need more, are lighting up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then we can say, okay, how about this? How about I lean into this? Maybe it's a positionality, maybe it's a perspective, maybe it's simple an adjustment in attitude or in a belief system, right? Or in a belief, one single, that in and out of ourselves is so powerful. And how that links for me, I will share with you in very practical terms. I remember the государственный examen, which is government examinations, that was back then a big part of the journey, because we all had to pass them. If we don't pass them, we don't earn our diploma. It's just that simple. And part of them was performing 5, 6, whatever it was, pieces on the piano, conducting several pieces. A different exam was conducting a choir, a 4-part choir, several pieces, And then we had, 2-3 other ones. But what spoke to me the most here is, speaking even in piano, I all of my life I've been so challenged with performing for audiences, so much so that I would shake in my boots, like literally. And this is not a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
So when it came point in time to actually do the exam of my life, is either I have a diploma or I don't have a diploma, because my teacher took a year to completely revamp, the structure with which I approached playing the piano, and made time for me to catch up for that year. I don't know how she did this, right? Because it's under her tutelage, under her guidance, I was able to do so. Even though I was shaking in my boots for this piano, 5-6 pieces, whatever it was, I still finished them. I still went through with shaking hands and sweating hands, and I still got an A. Okay, so so if you were to see it, my shaking hands, you would say, like, how is she playing? Shaking like a, in her boots. How is she doing this? But we get to that point that even with the inner obstacles and the edges that are still being worked on, we can fly.
Oh, yeah. That's good. There's lots of places we could go, but I'm
Thank you.
curious about
Uh-huh.
your opinion on exploring an art form in an
Mhm.
academic setting and
Mhm.
getting graded upon it.
Mhm.
And where does a skill or a craft become art?
Excellent question. Could we expand it beyond academic, including academic, but beyond?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so at different levels, obviously, different schools with different focus, there are different criteria, different expectations, which is very natural. And I can't speak for anyone, but I can speak for my own perspective, right? Because I've been teaching since I was 18, music first, and then the story continues, yes? Now with personal psychology, humanistic psychology. For me, because of part of my history, how I understood the importance and the role of teachers in development, I made a personal vow to do my very best to avoid smashing, crushing anyone's spirit to the best of my capacity, right? We all have the light and the shadow. We all have that. We need to own it. But to the best of my ability, be tough enough and gentle enough and direct enough and imaginal enough to hold the space for what will arise. The structure is necessary from my perspective, because without the structure, the basic structure, be it in a course, let's say, what are the key assignments, right? What is the tone and tenor? What is the invitation? What are the resources? What are the possibilities, right? But also asking individuals to think if there's something else they would like to do differently. For instance, even for students and for those whom I mentor, yes, beyond students, to say, how would you like that different? How would you like to make it yours? What would we need to tweak here? Yes, to make it fully yours. And it goes within academia and well beyond it. Yes, well beyond it. For instance, I'll share with you, that's also, how do we take it from a skill to kind of mastery? Well, one word is practice, 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 practice. Oy, the old school, yes. And then another one is inspiration. I need to feed my inspiration in imaginal ways, sometimes in practical ways, and they have to meet somehow. example, I'm looking right now at my blender. So I'm going to shift the topic a little bit from music to the kitchen, right? Because that is also the music of life, right? Life and well. And it sustains us just as much as music itself does in its own way, yes. So I've been enjoying cooking for a very long time. It began with a necessity.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I have to feed myself somehow.
Yeah.
My mom and my dad are no longer cooking for me. Oh, what will I do? You know, how can I do this? So that was a struggle. And then beyond that kind of period of struggle, I had to realize, okay, what works for me? What is the basic, if you will, routine or basic skit that I'm willing to repeat time and again in the kitchen with some variation, depending on, you know, how much time I have, what mood I'm in, what is available in the fridge. And mind you, right, kind of the down-to-earth living, what are off-peak hours for electricity use and on-peak hours and super off-peak? Hey, I'm gonna bring this into conversation, right? Because if I'm, you know, cooking something long for in an oven at 275 for 2 hours or beyond, and it's an electric oven, this is pulling a lot of electricity. So I need to be smart, and as part of the skill and mastery, right? When I'm going to put this puppy, right, metaphorically speaking, that dish, by that I mean, in the oven, and in which part of the day, and you know how I'd like to go about this. And so, to me, the skill, the more I am practicing or putting to work a basic necessity such as cooking, right, or at least preparing meals or making sure that you know they're available, etc. How to take it to the mastery. I believe that taking risks is a big part of it, and this is where the imaginal comes in. So recently, I have returned after a huge hiatus to green drinks in the morning. And the morning is like, okay, it's whenever I get to it, right, to the kitchen, depending on what's going on. That would be kind of the morning. It could be in the afternoon, could be early morning, could be mid-morning. It's still the morning because it's kind of it's the first kind of food intake, right, whenever it takes place. And so over 10 years ago, I went through a period where I was really good about blending in the morning a few leaves of kale, seeds, spices, and nuts. And it worked out so very well that at some point I went to the doctor for something else, and she ran my blood. She says, what are you doing? Like all of these elements, the typical, you know, where humans are low, that you're like shining. What are you doing? I said, well, here's the recipe. That I don't follow recipes, but you take a little bit of this and a little bit of this and maybe a little bit of this or whatever else is available, right? And then somehow life happened for me, and I really veered off from this. And part of it, I want to also share with you why. Because I believe that during that time that I really stepped away from that, I did not have a supportive voices around me in that direction, because people around me viewed this as a complication of life. And that I'm just making it more complicated. And there was a degree of sarcasm about this. And I think that being individuals in the creative arts, we are sensitive enough to this that even if consciously we say, oh, no, we should not get to us. But guess what? Who we surround ourselves with matters. And it took me so long now to return to this, because individuals who are close to me now are actually supportive to learn more with me and from me. What the heck am I up to today with that green adventure, right? So, and here's how, from basic to kind of mastery, and I say mastery in a very humorous way, in kind of in enhancing, if you will, the process, right? And growing my wings with that. So now I take whatever greens I happen to have, maybe a little bit of kale, definitely celery. Celery keeps really well in the fridge, and it just it's a good one to have for a long time, and it's there. A few slices of raw carrot, and a little bit of fennel, fresh fennel, whenever it's available. So that's a new adventure for me. And then whatever seeds and spices I would like to add, I would blend it. Now, in the past, I would blend it with water. And here's where the touch of mastery is coming in. Now I am blending it with broth, with bone broth that I make, and that's another sacred saga in my life. And then I freeze in small jars, what I don't use right away. So this way it lasts me for a while. I could take a jar out and I can dilute it with water if there's not enough or what have you. And so that's kind of moving towards mastery. And now, okay, the most recent one, you have to hear this.
Oh, I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm even cheerfully impressing myself with this. Okay, thank you for laughing with me about this. This is good. So here's what it is. I was wondering, how can I incorporate grains with that routine without having to chew on them and having all of this, entirely different dish going on and so much time investment, So I decided, okay, I'm going to blend 3 grains that I have, and they could be prepared by themselves, so they can be blended. So mine is buckwheat, millet, and amaranth. So approximately 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, right? Approximately, but you can do it in different ratio. And I simmer this mixture for 15, 20 minutes, what have you. Continue to add water because it does like water. And then I just put it in the fridge. So when it's time for drinks, I just take a big spoon or 2. And now I actually add grain into the drinks before I blend them. And so this way I have my healthy grains, I have my healthy greens, and I have my bone broth, and I have spices that I'd like to, do. And then a recent also innovation is just yesterday, Sunday. So I decided, okay, I'm going to put my spice mixes in different jars, so I don't have to every morning get them out, so they're prepared. So that is kind of like a leitmotif also that takes us from skill building to kind of mastering and flying, our own way. It's always a process, and feeding that inspiration and surrounding myself with people who appreciate that, who actually can say, oh my gosh, you did that? What did you do? Just say it again. What did you do? You did this? Yeah, I did this, and I don't even know what I will do tomorrow. But I know they will smile and chuckle and laugh at me, but also go home and do it too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going
You're
to
welcome.
borrow some of those things because I've been searching for some way to do that myself.
Yes, thank you. Just trust yourself, experiment with this. If you have to save that for, like if you made too much, you can save it for later. Of course, it's better.
Yeah, I also love food, and I also don't use recipes, so it's a very creative kind of.
Yes, exactly. And then one more thing with this, you can make it very cold, you can make it warm, or you could make it hot. That's another way. You could make it more on the sweeter side by adding maybe berries or banana, what have you. You make your pick. Or you can make it savory with salt and pepper. Oh, so good. I'm telling you, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you feel like you need to take a break?
So we'll be right back.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much, and until next time, stay tuned in to you.